All right, hello everyone. My name is Brett Robertson. I'm a senior majoring in information systems, and for my project, I analyzed major global disasters from 1970 to 2021. And I chose this topic because I've always been interested in natural disasters. I grew up in Houston when like hurricanes were just a normal part of my life, and then moving to Nashville a couple years ago, I also experienced some tornado outbreaks that were pretty close to home. So this topic definitely resonates with me. Um, and so what I wanted to do was just look at how disasters in the U.S. compare to, disasters in other parts of the world, just relatively, and then just to see what patterns show up. So, yeah, for the first milestone, what I did is I got my data set from Kaggle. Yeah, this data set originally had over 1,400 rows of data entries, which was kind of overkill for this project. So, yeah, basically, what I did was I had to prepare this data and clean it before I brought it into my Tableau. So I did that in Excel, and yeah, what I ended up doing actually was because I wanted to focus on major disasters, I went ahead and filtered it to only the events that had over 400 deaths. So that took out a lot of rows. So it left me with around 600 rows. And then I also got rid of a lot of fields, just so that I could condense it down to, what I thought would be important for my project. So that brings me to milestone two, which is where I imported that Excel sheet into Tableau. I finished cleaning data and then I started building my visualizations. So this is my very first visualization right here, which is just a bar chart showing the top 10 countries by total deaths. And then and again, I'll go ahead and go further into detail once I get to the dashboard, but I also created this line chart showing the frequency of major disasters, and that's just based off of the number of disasters in any given year. And then I also built this map visualization, which is just dealing with countries and the total deaths related to natural disasters in those countries. And this is also very helpful in my analysis later on. And I also created another bar chart here, showing the total deaths by disaster category, which is also very helpful. And then I also created another line chart with just kind of like a historical um, timeline of the deaths by disaster type over time. And it's just kind of cool to see how the death toll has gone up, um, with different disaster types. But I actually ended up not using this in my final dashboard because it was just kind of an extra thing that I did and it wasn't needed. But yeah, and so before I get to the dashboard, I would just want to show the final thing I did in this milestone, which was putting it all on a napkin. So yeah, this was kind of like a little blueprint of my dashboard. Thought it was pretty cool, and yeah, it was very helpful because my dashboard ended up turning out a lot like this blueprint. So this is my final dashboard. It's pretty simple. At the top, I just added a few filters, just if you want to narrow it down to anything. And then up here is the line chart, which just shows how many major disasters happened um, in a given year. And then on the left here is the global map, which just shows total deaths by country. Um, on the right is the top 10 countries bar chart. And then on the bottom down here is the deaths by disaster category. And then everything is interactive too. Like it all deals with each other when you click on something. So for instance, if you click on Bangladesh, the rest of everything will update too. And yeah, it's the same thing with the filters too at the top. But yeah, as you can see, down here, for instance, it'll show you the stuff on this chart, which is pretty cool. And I think that's really helpful too. Like, if you just want to see which disasters impact a country, so like Haiti, even, um, it'll show like, yeah, like a lot of it is related to earthquake deaths. But yeah, it just kind of gives a quick picture of, when these disasters happened, you know, where they occur. And yeah, so moving on to my story analysis. The first question that I ask is, how has the frequency of major disasters changed over time? And as you can see here, it just fluctuates a lot by year. I really don't see like a clear pattern. The year with the most major disasters was 1998 with 23, and then closely following is 1991 with 22. And I feel like it kind of peaks a little bit in the 90s, but again, besides that, I don't see any clear patterns here. So yeah, there's really, when it comes to this, there's no main patterns with the frequency increasing over time. And then my second story point was, just, where in the world these deadliest disasters occur. And when you look at this, at least my eyes first go to this cluster over here in South and Southeast Asia. We've got Bangladesh, China, India, Indonesia, several countries over here, with a lot of deaths related to disasters. And I mean, these are a lot of densely populated countries too. And then the next cluster was over here in East Africa with Ethiopia, Sudan, Somalia, and even the Congo. A lot of deaths there. And also this other cluster in Central America and the Caribbean. You've got Haiti, you've got several ones down here in um, Central America, and then also Colombia and Venezuela. But yeah, those are the main clusters that I noticed. And um, I guess my takeaway from this, something that I noticed, is a lot of them fall right down here at the equator, or at least close to the equator, um, which can be probably related to just more storms going down there. You've got fault lines down here. In Asia, you have monsoons. In the Caribbean, you have hurricanes and earthquakes and floods. Um, so I guess that explains that. So my next question was, which country suffered the highest total disaster deaths? And if you go down here to this chart, you see that Bangladesh is number one with over 516,000 total deaths, which is really shocking to me. And what I even find crazier is that the number of major disasters in Bangladesh was 34 in just a span of 50 years. So that really goes to show that it wasn't just one major event. They've got a pattern of being hit a lot. So yeah, I thought that was really shocking. And for my last story point, I asked which type of disasters are the deadliest overall. As you can see, the number one at almost 1.3 million deaths are earthquakes. So those are by far the deadliest disasters, and the other two that are pretty significant as well are storms and droughts. And this all makes sense because earthquakes are very devastating when they do happen. They're very destructive and deadly. And storms and droughts as well, these can just affect a really huge area once at a time. So it makes sense how these are all among the top. So that pretty much wraps it up for this project. Looking back, I definitely have a better understanding of major disasters, and just also how they affect countries across the world. I'd say that my biggest lesson learned from this class is to just be intentional with your data, just the preparation, and having an objective for your story. I think just having that is very important for a good data analysis. But yeah, that's it. That's my project on global major disasters. Thank you.